Evangelist here at Rackspace Technology, last live broadcast of the year for us here. And it all starts in just 30 seconds where we're talking about all things unstructured data. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world we found you. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Jeff DeVerter, as I said, Chief Technology Evangelist here at Rackspace Technology. And hey, last live broadcast of the year, I had some fancy Christmassy music going on. It's all fun and games around here. It's all fun and games until we talk about data. That's serious business. And that's coming up, well, very, very shortly. Hey, so as always, I'd love for you guys to tell me who you are, where you are. So go ahead and introduce yourself in those comments. Tell me, what you're doing. What are you going to do over your break? Maybe give it a little comment down below and let us know what is happening. Now, as always, we would, hey, Imran, we're glad that you are here. If you want to get a hold of me over here at Rackspace, you can do that at solve@rackspace.com. That's if you want to reach directly out and chat to us here at the Solve program at Rackspace. You know, I'm available over on LinkedIn. You can find me there anytime. If we're not friends there, go ahead and connect with me. I'd love to connect with you there. Hey, Jay, I'm glad that you're here. Rackspace says hello to you. So today, as I mentioned before, we have got a great guest, and it's my good friend from over at Dell EMC, Dell Technologies. It's Joe Steiner. He is the CTO of Unstructured Data, and he is going to be along. Look at that. You weren't seeing any of my fun stuff before. I didn't have the right button pushed. He's going to come on here shortly, and we're going to talk about all things unstructured data. Actually, what we're really promoting also is the podcast that released just today. And it's a great conversation that Joe and I had about a month ago, and I finally got it edited. Well, hey, folks, as always, we're going to follow our normal format. We're going to start with This Week in the Cloud, and that's where we talk about what's happening in the cloud in the news and why it's important to you. We'll follow that up with some releases from the cloud, and then, of course, that cloud discussion. And maybe for next year, that section that says what's on your mind that we never really ever get to, maybe I'll pull that off the list. So who knows what updates we're going to see in 2022. It's going to be exciting, isn't it? All right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and jump into the news. And it starts with, well, here's an interesting article. Now, you may be familiar with the gentleman, David Lithicum. He is a legend when it comes to all things cloud and transformation. And he's got a really interesting article today that I found. And Daniel's going to go ahead and post that down in the chat window. Not in the chat window, he's going to post it in the comments. You can find it in the comments. So it says how to fix a cloud deployment that's losing money. And I got to tell you, I started reading this article and it sort of got me a little bit agitated because I thought, come on, David, you're a little smarter than this. Because he was approaching it simply from the angle of the reason we moved to the cloud was to save money. And that can be a reason that you move to the cloud, but it should never be the reason you move to the cloud. Everyone, warm round of welcome for my good friend Sean Gardner, great friend, previous coworker, now killing it over there at Rancher. Go ahead and say hi to Sean. Sean, glad that you're here. So at any rate, back to the article. ADD kicked in when I saw Sean show up. Hey, but look at this. I'm going to show you, as I went through the article, the main challenges that they saw with these deployments. Look at this for a second. So let's give you full screen so you can see this stuff. So first of all, their issues that they had, 68% said they had issues with security, 15%, IT, 15, 59% said IT spend is out of control. They can't figure it out. Day-to-day maintenance, 36%. Root cause analysis and postmortems on their issues, 22%, not to mention the challenges that they're having all around cloud recruiting. Here was what drove me a little bit nuts about this article is these are not cloud problems, are they? No, these are management problems. So first of all, don't go blaming your cloud problems on management problems. Now, it's very true that your move to the cloud may require a change in how you manage your people, how you manage your workloads, but that's all part of cloud readiness. Now, as you get into the article, David has some great takeaways. He said, for cloud, planning is everything, is one of the points he makes. Couldn't be more true. Go into your transformation eyes wide open. He said, now it's time to improve the cloud's business value. That's right. You've got to go in and not just look at the expense, but what are you saving in other areas and what are you making as part of opportunity costs or even just new customers? And then final takeaway, it's never, ever too late to reconfigure. Could not agree more. Go read that article. It's really killer. Read anything that David writes. He's a smart dude. Now, Azure launches Intelligent Cloud with Cloud Native Compiler. Elastically compiles code on demand to improve Java performance. What's cool about this, hey, Philip did make it out of his 8 o'clock meeting. Good for you, Philip. What's really cool about what Azul is doing is Netherlands. First group from Robert. Glad you're from the Netherlands. First person from the Netherlands. Is that it is compiling. It's a just-in-time compiler for Java, and it compiles unique to the cloud. Isn't that cool? So regardless of which cloud you're running in, it helps that multi-cloud solution run even better. So go check that out. Sweet. All right. Well, let's go back to what is happening now in the cloud releases. We'll start, as always, with our good friends over at AWS. Nimble Studio. Didn't know about Nimble Studio. Going to be transparent with you here. But Nimble Studio, new features to support Linux usage-based licensing and Los Angeles local time zone. So Nimble Studio is really quite cool. Nimble Studio is a feature that is intended and designed for working with rendering of 3D objects, of video and film type stuff. This is why they put Los Angeles in there, for the film and TV industry. So utilizing spinning up discrete workloads to do the rendering and working around all of that stuff. So really cool. So they've made that a little more optimized around licensing and such. Also, AWS Direct Connect. 2 new locations in Indonesia for all our friends down in Indonesia. I will also say that that we've never had anybody from Indonesia connect into this. So maybe somebody will in short order now that you've got Direct Connect down there. AWS did announce a new region showing up there, so it just makes sense that Direct Connect shows up as well. Alejandro, greetings, soon to be the second person from the Netherlands. Glad that you're here. Boy, it's a popular day in the Netherlands. What time of day is it in the Netherlands today? That's what I want to know. From Azure, automated key rotation to Azure Key Vault is now in public preview. This is pretty great stuff. Again, it's the moral of the cloud story. There are these times when there's big monumentous change. The rest of it is incremental goodness. And this is what we see here in the ability to now rotate keys with notifications going into the event stream. To help make your environment more secure. So go check that out. Also from Azure, we have public preview, Azure Kubernetes Service Configuration Management with GitOps. So excellent for GitOps. This allows a capability that was previously available only in Azure Arc-enabled Kubernetes and now makes AKS a first-class citizen in that as well. 3:39 p.m. in the Netherlands. Hey, thanks for doing the math for me there, Philip. That's almost beer 30. Oh, you lucky dogs. Okay, over on the Google side, Google Composer 2 is now generally available. Google Composer is a fully managed workflow orchestration service enabling you to create, schedule, and monitor and manage workflows that span across clouds and premises and on-premises data center. So that hybrid environment, isn't that great? Naveed, glad that you are here. Thanks for joining us today. What's on your mind? You going to take some time off at the end of the year? Also from Google is internal TCP UDP load balancing now allows you to configure connection tracking policies for load balancing back-end services. So not just making it available, but now being able to wrap policies around who goes where and what happens. And yes, Philip, Google is one heck of a search tool. Pretty incredible. Hey, Birmingham, not Alabama, but the UK. So Naveen, great to have you. Or Devin. I can't read very well, Devin. Please accept my apologies. But our guest today, one Joe Steiner, is from Georgia. So close to Alabama, but not close to to Birmingham either. So at any rate, I'm sort of rambling now, but I'm so excited to get to introduce you to Joe Steiner. Joe and I have worked together for years through the Rackspace Dell Technologies partnership, and we got to talking earlier this fall and said, "Hey, we should do a podcast, and you should come on the live show." So we've done the podcast. We're here to talk about that today, and we brought him on the live show. So with that, why don't you guys create a great welcome for Joe Steiner to come up here onto the stage with us as well, and we'll get into a little bit of a conversation about unstructured data. So Joe Steiner, welcome to the show.
Hello, Jeff. Hello, folks from all over the world. Hope you're well, Jeff and team.
Oh man, we're doing great. So Joe, I told you we're getting people from all over the place. They're from all over the place.
Excellent.
Hey, so Joe, you are the CTO of Unstructured Data. That's a very fancy title. Not everybody knows what unstructured data is, and I'd love to give you the opportunity to talk about that.
So, Jeff and folks all over the world, right? We're all this information we're talking about today. We're creating a digital footprint that's going to be around for as long as that content is moved from one media to another media. So, when we think of unstructured data, I typically look at it as for years individuals put things in rows and columns. They had an idea of how they wanted to put information in a format, maybe the name, the address, the certain information that people wanted to extract. Companies wanted to get that information in a very structured manner so they could recall it and gain access to the information that they wanted out of an individual user or customer. Unstructured, right? The shift occurred where the content no longer sits in rows and columns. It's your file data. It's your information that you might be getting out of a manufacturing floor device or some automated tool. It could be content that could be from a camera, video surveillance, right? So unstructured data is all around us, and how you interact with that unstructured data has changed quite a bit over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And that's a big part of what we talked about on the podcast. In fact, Daniel, if you wouldn't mind, producer Daniel's going to drop a link to that podcast here. I encourage all of you to go check that out. It's the Cloud Talk podcast. If you're not already a subscriber, would love for you to become one as we expand that fan base, that listener base all around the world. And so I think you're going to really enjoy the conversation. So Joe, being CTO of Unstructured Data, your data journey, well, it's not a new one. You've kind of been in the game for a while. In fact, I love to talk about this. I think about it a lot when I was editing the podcast. Again, it took my mind to it, but you had a little startup that was a little bit before the transport time. So let's talk about that for a second.
I was a little early, team. I started a company called DriveStorage.com, and I had a vision that I would be able to allow customers to collaborate and individuals to be able to collaborate and store data in a central location, and me be the location for all of their data. I would be their H drive or their S drive. Their shared content would sit out on my site and allow them to collaborate, or eventually be able to run their applications or run their I kind of targeted mortgage companies and real estate agents and brokers to be able to collaborate. So I was a little early, Jeff.
You were a little early. But what I find interesting is this whole concept that you really gravitated towards early on. Now we're able to actually facilitate a lot of this. And it really does impact cloud decisions. And that is that data doesn't have to be beholden to the application, even in a true, multi-tier application sense. That data can and should have a life of its own. Now, you were looking at unstructured data in the context, well, I guess somewhat structured in the context of the mortgage brokers, but you wanted to be that S drive, that shared drive that everyone could connect to. And so when we look at data as separate from the application, it allows us to now make some business decisions. What are some of those decisions that impact where somebody might want to choose to place their data?
Well, so the network, the reason why DriveStorage.com, when I started it many, many, many years ago, I had to evolve. And that company was, the network bandwidth wasn't there to facilitate the type of activity that I wanted. So there's massive changes that occurred even in the last 3 years with regards to IP network and how customers are able to change their MPLS links to optimize network, software-defined networking, SD, WAN, and what's happening with 5G. And that's going to be phenomenal to think about the cost of IT sensors and OT sensors on a manufacturing floor and in facilities, and then being able to connect those together with 5G, where physical cables and networking equipment could not physically be routed, or it's not cost effective for it to be routed. So there's
Yeah.
new ways to connect all these devices together, and all these devices are generating content, and there's massive opportunities to do intelligent things with that data.
That's right. And so you come at it from the angle of, there's new intelligent ways to do things with the data, but there are also real expense side of things to consider as well. We live in this hyperscale world. In fact, I sort of reinforce that in the messaging when I talk about updates from the hyperscale providers. In some case, that includes storage, but there's an ugly side to that as well. It's the old roach motel. I'm not calling the cloud providers roaches, but what I am saying is it's pretty cheap to get your data in, but it's not so cheap to get your data out.
Yeah, that's true. The devices are getting more cost effective. In fact, they're reaching our everyday lives, right? Consumer goods have IP connected devices, refrigerators, all these different items in our everyday lives, because the costs are dropping. But when you think about the cost to serve, it's important to understand for companies that model. Where do you want to run your work? Where do you want to store your data? So the separation of compute and data, we have seen that occur across Dell. So whether it's in an analytics use case where we're trying to extract information to be more predictive about what our customers need, or whether it's like we've talked about in the automotive industry with manufacturing, autonomous driving, being able to analyze data and make more real-time decisioning against data that's coming in the stream. The idea of cost to serve, there's two elements. It's how do I decipher information out, or decipher the information that I'm extracting and get value out of that data in real time. That's a compute element. But then we have a persistent side of that, where we may want to go back and look at the data set later and do intelligent things with it in a post-process manner. So I really see a separation of the compute and the storage of the unstructured data, and we have to look at the cost to serve on both fronts.
That's so true. It's so true. Now let's talk about, as we think about data, we think about the fact it's got to get stored and the different, technologies and capabilities that exist there. Not a lot of us think about, what that looks like. Let's talk about Dell stuff. Let me give you an opportunity to share a little bit about those products and services that you guys bring to market.
Jeff and team, we're really excited about what we're focusing on at Dell with unstructured data. There's kind of really three things that we consider unstructured data. The one is object, and we see object emerging is really a first class citizen. It's no longer just let me put content in an object bucket for cheap storage. Not at all. We see object now as a very transactional method for customers to do intelligent things with data. So we've got object scale that allows our customers to effectively store those objects and geographically distribute that object data around the world. So object scale is something we continue to invest heavily. It sits on top of a Kubernetes stack for agility, being able to get our customers to be able to spin it up in a very agile manner. We also have our platform that's built on OneFS, which historically was started in the media and entertainment space, Isilon. We rebranded that to PowerScale because we know we have a competitive advantage with PowerEdge servers. We want to bring new node types and new chipsets to market for our customers. So the PowerScale platform is the #1 scale out NAS architecture, and we're excited about what that has done to our customer base with the introduction of new, more performant nodes and new protocols like S3 and NFS over RDMA, GPU Direct, which enables our customers to have a more powerful platform, but really an operational ease of management to keep their costs down. And lastly, we built a solution that is much like a network DVR for data.
Yeah.
So it's a streaming data platform, and streams of data that come in off of video cameras or OT or IoT sensors or the manufacturing floor, drones, right? We've got many different applications where data is streaming out of our customers' environments. And what they want to do is they want to be able to go back and at scale, be able to ingest that data and make real-time decisionings, but also play it back exactly how it came in. So we built a solution that's almost like a network DVR for
Isn't
data.
that amazing?
It is. So we can go back in time and choose a date and then play it back exactly how it came in at that point in time.
That's incredible. All right, so let me put you in the role that you live in every day. You coach people in how to think about their data as they're creating their strategies going forward. You got a couple of tips you can give folks. So here's the top three things you should think about when thinking about where your application estate goes as it relates to the data environment.
Yeah, so it's cost to serve is important, but it's also about how can we enable our customers to have the necessary bandwidth back to the locations they're choosing
Yeah.
to run applications and toolkits. So that bandwidth, the very reason why I struggled to launch DriveStorage.com at the scale that I wanted to had to do with network and the ability to have the data in a location that was optimized for the customers. So as customers push more of their decisioning out to the edge, we've got to make sure that we've got the agility to get our capabilities out to those edge locations so that they can process and decision in more real time out on the edge or efficiently store that content. But then also have the secure method to be able to send that information back to so security, right? We got to make sure that we're focusing
Never
on.
has that been more of an issue than what we have today.
Exactly. So how can we securely store it at the edge, but then have the data mobility to move that to locations that are strategic to the customer in a cost-effective manner? So
Right.
those are some of the key attributes: security, data flexibility, and data mobility.
Right. And keep your options open. I mean, we really need to think about where that's going to go. And regardless of where you choose to move that application, you've got to think about, you even hate to say the word out loud, ransomware. What is that recovery plan as well? That cold storage environment, a warm storage environment that you've got up to date and air gapped between your production environment and so that you maybe don't have to go write that big old check to get your unlock the data or at least part of the data. Yeah, Philip calls out zero trust is the only way to secure that edge. I couldn't agree more on the zero trust. Here's a question from Naveed. How security is taking place talk about security on the unstructured data side for a second, if you wouldn't mind.
So there's a couple layers, right? We got the physical security that we want to make sure that we're using FIP certified hardware components. We want to make sure that we've got automated tools monitoring the activity that's occurring with connectivity across the devices, looking for things like ransomware detection. Those are some of the key elements: is how do I automate and introduce technologies to monitor the activity so that we are able to identify anomalies that don't look like their normal connectivity intentions. So automation, secure, making sure that we're sending information back and forth with encryption. Those are some of the main elements. If you're having to physically secure it, but then start to logically introduce technologies that can help monitor what's going on with the system in a very automated manner.
That's right. And Philip's already given links to the Dell Technology site for all this stuff, which is fantastic. All right. Joe, I couldn't be more pleased to have you on the show, have you on the podcast. Guys, if you haven't checked out that podcast, the link is here, or just open up your phone, your device of choice, go to your podcast app of choice, just search for Cloud Talk. It is the most recent episode that we put out. This is the end of the second year of this podcast. So there's plenty of content in there for you to find and a lot that's planned for next year. So I encourage you to not only listen to Joe's episode, but to subscribe. In fact, I'm going to go out on the edge here. I don't have approval from marketing on this, but I'm a fancy person, so I guess I can make these decisions. We're going to do a little contest as well. You go download that podcast, get it on your device, screenshot that device, that image, and send it to solve@rackspace.com. Solve@rackspace.com. In fact, Daniel's going to put that in the list in the chat. Winner's going to get sent a randomized winner is going to get sent some awesome, maybe even a Dell Technologies Rackspace shirt. I know we've got some of those around there. So some great swag. These are good shirts. These are nice, collared, wicking type shirts. So go check those out. We can't check it out, but you got to check out the podcast. Send me the screenshot of you listening to that, or at least it on your device, partial the way through listening, and send it to solve@rackspace.com. Joe, thanks again for being here. I'm so happy to have had you.
Jeff, thanks for your partnership. I'm excited about our future, and thanks for all you guys do.
Oh, absolutely. And guys, this is the last episode of the year. We're heading into holidays here around the world, and I will be back with these programs the first week of January. Until then, I hope you have a very safe and merry holiday season and New Year's. And I can't wait to be back next year with some great content, great podcasts, great live sessions. We'll talk to you then.